Hey, folks, it's stick season. Did we go through this last time? What stick
we
season?
did. Sticks on the trees is what we determined.
Sticks on the trees. The leaves are gone. Also, it's hockey season.
Yes.
Temperatures dropping. Days are shorter. But, of course, our day-to-day stresses remain the same. And in some instances, they've increased. As we wind down 2024, you deserve to rest and recharge. Thankfully, one of our sponsors can help with that. Folks over at sunsetlakesabadee.com have kicked off their Black Friday sale early. Right now, you can save 30% site-wide when you head over to sunsetlakesabadee.com and use the code Friday. They got everything you need to chill out and enjoy this holiday season. They got tinctures. They got gummies. They got topicals, even products for your pets. Stuff to help you sleep. The Good Night gummies and the Good Night tincture oil has been key for me. But of course, I still occasionally will rely on just the straight Sabadee tinctures. And maybe after dinner, they have smokables, keef, pre-rolls. They've got Sabadee coffee, my weekend blend. All of their products, third-party tested, no pesticides, great business practices, real movement partners, donated thousands of dollars to Strike Relief Fund, Refugee Resettlement, Planned Parenthood. They've engaged in mutual aid up in Vermont in the wake of the floods. They sponsored our live show and donated a ton to help with UNRWA. Just a great company. Sunset Lake Sabadee is including some freebies this year. If you order over $100, they'll throw in a free 20-count jar of Relax Functional Mushroom Gummies. And if your order is over $200, they'll also throw in a 20-count jar of the Focus Functional Mushroom Gummies. People really love that Relax stuff. I mean, I imagine I eat the Focus, but the Relax, I get a lot of requests from friends and family. Head over to sunsetlakesabadee.com. Use the code Friday, save 30% off. See their site for terms and conditions. And now, time for the show.
The Majority Report with Sam Seder, where every day's Casual Friday. That means Monday is Casual Monday. Tuesday, Casual Tuesday. Wednesday, Casual Hump Day. Thursday, Casual Thurs. That's what we call it. And Friday, Casual Shabbat. The Majority Report with Sam Seder.
It is Friday, November 22nd, 2024. My name is Sam Seder. This is the 5-time award-winning Majority Report. We are broadcasting live steps from the industrially ravaged Gowanus Canal in the heartland of America, downtown Brooklyn, USA. On the program today, Heather Parton, columnist at Salon, or you may know her as Digby from the Uber blog Hullabaloo. Meanwhile, also on the program today, Donald Trump's hush money case, sentencing canceled indefinitely. Unclear what happens from here. Capitol Hill. Matt Gaetz out. And fraudster Pam Bondi in as the new Attorney General nominee as Donald Trump takes his first loss. However, Republicans are trying to rally around Pete Hegseth for defense secretary as more reporting on his alleged sexual assault comes to light. Marjorie Taylor Greene to head the congressional panel that is working with the Musk and Ramaswamy's Anti-Government Commission.
Oh, that sounds like a match made in hell.
Oh, yeah. House passes 9495, the nonprofit killer bill. It will head to the Senate we'll see what happens with that going forward. Chuck Schumer strikes an incredibly weak deal to confirm district judges at the expense of 4 appellate judges' nominations. U.S. and Israel reject ICC judgments, while the rest of the world vows to uphold the international order. And former Brazilian President Bolsonaro, how did he say it?
Bolsonaro is how Ruben said it.
Facing criminal charges stemming from his 2022 coup attempt. Funny how that works. And Kentucky battery plant workers launch a UAW union drive. All this and more on today's Majority Report. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It is
Casual Friday.
Casual Friday.
Hello.
Soft collared shirts, et cetera, Not like my normal shirts are particularly starched, as it were. Welcome to the program, folks. Just a house cleaning. Emma will be doing the fun half solo today. I've got to go. I'm having other health issues with my other cat. Not good, but
Sam's been going through it, guys. So send him some nice IMs today.
There's
please.
a lot of There's a lot of people have been going through a lot of it, but one guy who seems to be still managing to keep his head above water is Bibi Netanyahu. The announcement that the ICC is issuing warrants for Netanyahu and Yoav Gallant's arrest. They did so also with a Hamas leader, has in some ways strengthened Netanyahu in Israel, at least for the time being. Not to be terribly unexpected, but remember, the ICC chief prosecutor, Karim Khan, who in May announced that he was seeking these arrest warrants, and then the court has to determine whether they're going to issue them. He was the pick of the Israelis back in 2021, the summer of 2021. He replaced the existing prosecutor who was threatened if she brought any type of warrant for arrest by the Israelis firsthand. Karim Khan has since also been threatened by the Israelis, but at the time, he was their pick. They were on record as saying this guy is judicious and will do the right thing, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, he must have caught that anti-Semitism from the predecessor that was also looking into Israeli war crimes. It's funny how that happens.
Yeah, it is sort of shocking how that goes down. They caught some type of, like, I guess, virus.
Right.
And while in this country, well, let's play this. Let's play Karine Jean-Pierre to get a sense of like how adamant the United States has become about not subscribing to, I guess, the international norms and a rules-based order. Here is Karine Jean-Pierre talking about those ICC warrants.
Does the administration see this ruling as a threat to Israel's ability to defend itself? And also Republican Senator Lindsey Graham is calling for the Senate to sanction the ICC after this decision. Is that a measure that the White House would support?
Yeah, so a couple things. Let me just say, because it's the first time I've had an opportunity to speak to this at the podium, so let me just say more broadly that we fundamentally reject the court's decision to issue arrest warrants for senior Israel officials. We remain deeply concerned by the prosecutor's rush to seek arrest warrants and the troubling process errors that led to this decision. The United States has been clear that the ICC does not have jurisdiction over this matter. You've heard us say this before. Whatever this prosecutor might imply, there is no evidence, none, between Israel and Hamas. There's just none.
No evidence?
In coordination with partners, including Israel, we are discussing certainly those next steps, but that's going to look like. And to your question about sanctions, that's basically kind of just answered it in that last part of what I said. We're in consultation with our partners and also, which include Israel, about our next steps.
She meant there's no equivalent between Israel and Hamas,
Right.
and I would agree on that front, but not probably in the way that she would agree with. And the issue of jurisdiction was Israel's defense. You know what happened? The ICC rejected that. They said, oh, actually, we do have jurisdiction in this matter. So restating Israel's defense doesn't change the reality that the court determined that that was not enough to restrain them from issuing these warrants, which had been in the works for, I don't know, 5 months, something like that.
We're going to see Israel become increasingly isolated, with the United States now, at least under Joe Biden, and probably more so, if that's even possible, with Donald Trump, being the only people out on that limb with Israel. And I don't think it's tenable for this country. I don't think Israel's position is tenable in the long run either. And here is just a sense, this rogue country to our north called Canada.
Full of anti-Semites.
It's shocking. Here is Prime Minister Justin Trudeau asked about these warrants, and he responded as one. The Hague, ladies and gentlemen. Maybe you'll recall where the Hague got its start, and that was trying Nazis. But here is Justin Trudeau.
Now that the ICC has issued warrants for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and his former Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, Canadian law enforcement is obligated to arrest them should they come to Canada. Will you allow that to happen, or will you step in to prevent an arrest?
First of all, as Canada has always said, it's really important that everyone abide by international law. This is something we've been calling on from the beginning of the conflict. We are one of the founding members of the International Criminal Court and International Court of Justice. We stand up for international law, and we will abide by all the regulations and rulings of the international courts. This is just who we are as Canadians.
Now that the ICC has issued warrants.
There you go.
And the consensus on this is changing, right? The liberal mainstream consensus. And that response from Karine Jean-Pierre is reflective of the Biden administration. But there were 19 Democrats who signed on, well, including Bernie Sanders, who signed on to his bill to block illegal arms sales to Israel a few days ago, and this was, I think, just a day before the ICC made this announcement. And so, there's a growing, even though it's a glacial pace of understanding that this position is untenable. It's just, deeply destructive and immoral that the Biden administration pursued this policy when they could have led the way. They delayed some of the more sane reactions and policies as it relates to Israel, or people reaching that consensus, because the United States is the superpower that countries like Canada follows. And so Biden's leadership failures here also extend to his sphere of influence within countries where we have these partnerships with, including our neighbor to the north. So like Trudeau saying this now, we could have improved on this, but now that we've elected Donald Trump, that opportunity is a little bit foreclosed. There will be cracks, but obviously he doesn't have a constituency of people that care about Palestine.
And we should say the Biden administration lobbied hard against senators voting in favor of this resolution. I mean, they knew it was going to fail, but
Right.
they didn't want to be embarrassed, and they were embarrassed.
And
To have,
Ossoff?
well,
Oh,
I was
sorry.
gonna read this. I am Georgian here. I canvassed for Ossoff and
Yep.
Warnock in 2020 and the runoff in 2021. I've been pleasantly surprised with how they've been as swing state voters. After seeing Ossoff's vote against Israeli arms sales and his speech on the Senate floor, I'm all in. If he keeps this up, I'll do everything in my power to get him into the Senate in 2026 and uproot my life to help him win the presidential primary in 2028. I've got some.
I think that could happen.
And I've heard rumblings of the national groundwork. I mean, there's two things. I have two reactions to this. One is, I thought it was incredibly impressive and important for a swing state Jew, frankly, to come out. I mean, it's just as risky for Ossoff. I mean, for Warnock as well. But within the Jewish community, he is going to take some heat. Not overwhelming. Probably he's going to get just as much, if not more, plaudits for it. But it is important. It's an important a bulwark against the claims from places like AIPAC and the so-called Anti-Defamation League that this is not about anti-Semitism. This is about Israel's behavior and actions as a country. And if Ossoff does actually have national aspirations, the idea that he comes out and does this now is indicative of where someone who is a swing state Democrat thinks the Democratic Party is headed. And I have contended that this is for a long time, that Joe Biden will be the last Democratic president who ever identifies as a Zionist. I mean, I think he was just out of the mainstream even for your typical Democrat, even 20 or 30 years ago.
Right.
But, and Ossoff, started his speech by citing when Ronald Reagan called Menachem Begin in 1982 and said, okay, you've done enough in terms of this Lebanese war. And within, a day, that war was ended. And so Biden, I think, was outside the mainstream of where Democratic politicians have been for 40 or 50 years, maybe more. I mean, frankly. But on top of that, I think the Democratic Party was and is shifting away from this unconditional support of Israel, and Ossoff doing this, and maybe his first biggest vote en route to a potential national campaign in 2028 is a good indication of where at least he thinks the Democratic Party will be 4 years from now.
Absolutely. And compare that to Josh Shapiro, who is another Jewish prominent lawmaker in a swing state who is likely going to run for president in 2028. This is the kind of thing where Ossoff wants to differentiate himself and is just has a better ideology. And right now, the Penn newspaper just came out with this great piece, great student newspaper at the University of Pennsylvania, about how Josh Shapiro's involvement with the university cracking down on those anti-genocide protesters was more robust and heavy-handed than initially thought. And so you could really see 2008 and how Obama rode anti-Iraq war sentiment, and the fact that Hillary Clinton had supported it to winning that nomination reflected once again in an undoubtedly crowded field in 2028.
All right, we're going to talk to Digby about what's going on with Donald Trump's sort of, I guess, nascent second term of his presidency in a moment. First, couple of words from our sponsors. Several years ago, Nutrafol approached us and said, do you want to us to sponsor the program? And I was like, there's nobody here who's well, Michael at the time was a little bit thinning, but he wasn't interested. And so I was like, there's nobody here who's interested in trying the product. And they sent us some to try. And about a year later or 2 years later, I was like, you know what? I'm starting to feel like I'm thinning on this side of my head. And I don't know if it's because I sleep on that. I don't know what it was. But I started to take it in large part because I felt like it's drug-free. It does not compromise any sexual stuff, as it were. And I figured, why not? Well, that's the case. That's why I think people hold off on this to some extent. But the bottom line, I've had great results with it. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand. It's trusted by over 1 million people. You will see thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Nutrafol. And the time to do this is early, folks. When you start to see any type of issue, thinning hair is different for men and women. One size fits all approach to hair growth doesn't cut it. Nutrafol has multiple formulas for men and women that are tailored to different life stages, such as postpartum or menopause, and lifestyle factors such as a plant-based lifestyle. You can get just what you need. It's physician formulated, 100% drug-free ingredients. Nutrafol supports healthy hair growth from within by targeting key root causes of thinning: stress, hormones, aging, nutrition, lifestyle, and metabolism through whole body health. And while many supplements just rely on ingredient studies, Nutrafol clinically tests the entire formulation, their final formulations, to ensure their efficacy. In a clinical study, 72% of men saw more scalp coverage after taking Nutrafol men hair growth supplement for 6 months. 86% of women saw improved hair growth after taking Nutrafol women hair growth supplement for 6 months. Emma knows somebody who
I had
went
a friend,
through this process. I also know somebody firsthand, both women, who had a great experience with this. With a Nutrafol subscription, building hair growth routine is simple. Purchase online, no prescription required. Automated deliveries and free shipping keep you on track. Plus, you can save up to 20%. So you'll have access to free naturopathic doctor consults, and Headspace membership is included as well. The cold, dry air of winter can be unforgiving, but your hair doesn't have to suffer. For a limited time, Nutrafol offering listeners $10 off your first month subscription and free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com. Enter the promo code TMR for The Majority Report. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com, spelled Nutrafol.com, promo code TMR. That's Nutrafol.com, promo code TMR. The links will be in the podcast and YouTube descriptions as always. And this is one of my favorite products in my house right now, because I have been trying to get rid of plastics. I've been trying to go just a little bit more, not just green for the planet, but healthier for me, because those little pods that you get for dishwashers, it's wrapped in plastic. It doesn't teleport somewhere else. It breaks down into microplastics and it goes into our water supply. Sometimes maybe it even goes to our bodies.
Onto our dishes.
Blue Land is on a mission to eliminate that kind of plastic and single-use plastic by reinventing cleaning essentials that are better for you and the planet. With the same powerful clean, obviously, that you're used to. Blue Land uses no single-use plastic in any component. Not their bottles, not their tablets, and their wrappers for shipping. Their tablet packaging is fully compostable. Their dishwasher tablets are proven to perform on baked on, burnt on stains. No rinse aid needed. They have great spray cleaners, all-purpose and bathroom and window. They've got hand soap, et cetera, et cetera. Those all-purpose, those cleaners are great. They're color-coded bottles. You start to run out, you fill it back up with water, you drop a tablet in, and you're off and running. You can get even more savings by buying refill in bulk or setting up a subscription. And you can buy refills in bulk because it's going to take up about the same amount of space as like one normal product does, that you come home with a huge plastic bin. Blue Land trusted in over 1 million homes, including mine. Blue Land has a special offer for listeners right now. Get 15% off your first order by going to blueland.com/majority. You don't want to miss this. Blueland.com/majority, 15% off. That's blueland.com/majority, 15% off. Link will be in the podcast and YouTube description. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Digby. Yes. The somewhat comforting tunes of the Digby theme song. Things can get bleak, but we will always have this song and our next guest to, I don't know, maybe cheer us up? I want to welcome back to the program Heather Parton, writer from Salon.com, and also Digby from the Uber blog Hullabaloo. Hello, Digby. Last time we spoke was just hours before the pre-Trump administration Part 2 era.
Yep. That was pretty awful. We all knew at that moment when we were talking that it didn't look good, but we still were holding out some hope. And, you know, it didn't take long for all that to come crashing down. I'm still feeling a little numb over all that, but here we are.
Yeah. I mean, let's just, before we get into sort of some of the specifics, I mean, let's talk about this numbness. There is a I have a different feeling than I did last time. I mean, I'm not shocked. Going into this, from my perspective, it was, 50-50 and it could go either way. And certainly we had learned the lesson from 2016.
I had not. I had really thought Harris was going to win. So it was a bit of a...
I did too.
It was a reverse for me. I thought Hillary was a lot weaker in 2016. And I couldn't... I think my brain couldn't accept that he ran such a bad campaign and it got racist, misogynistic, no discipline, no message, and it got rewarded.
Yeah, I mean, I liken it back a little bit to Bush 2004's win, but I was more shocked about that one in 2004. I think I've been involved in having my preferred candidate lose enough now that and in ways that I didn't anticipate. But what else? I mean, are you feeling about this, Heather?
Well, I mean, I'm with Emma, and this time I did think that I just assumed that after having seen what he was capable of, that people would not vote for him again. They beat him in 2020, and I saw the polls, and I don't think I was fooling myself too much, but I did think that the Democrats would eke out a victory in this polarized world, that it would just, it sort of had to go that way. So I wasn't shocked, but I was definitely extremely disappointed. And what I'm feeling now is less about him. I already know what he is, and I'm very familiar with what he's planning to do and what he's capable of, because I've been writing about him nonstop for 8 years. I feel like my brain is mush from it. But it's the American people. It's that, I'm really concerned about what has happened to, or been revealed, perhaps. Perhaps nothing's happened. Perhaps all that has happened is that Trump has revealed this strain in American society that I find very disturbing, that anybody would vote for that person who did that. And so, there's the MAGA cult. I was aware of that, but, that enough people who were not members of the MAGA cult, or people who were out there, not paying attention and just in the last minute came up and took a flyer, I guess, on Donald Trump. That is very disturbing to me, and it just shows a weakness in our society that I think I wasn't completely aware of. So it's a little depressing, to be honest with you. That's how I feel about it. So carrying on, doing what we have to do. I mean, there's no giving up. What are you going to do? I can't go anywhere, so I'm here. And so carrying on. But I feel less. In 2016, I think I felt personally hurt, to be honest, and very emotional. And I don't feel that way this time. I'm just, like I said, numb and disappointed in the American people, which is a terrible place to be. I hate feeling like that. I mean, that's not a good feeling.
I think that what is hurtful for me about this one, I guess, I kind of feel the reverse with Heather in terms of, just because, of course, in 2016, the misogyny and how he treated Hillary Clinton was at the forefront. But this felt like a different beast, because we have J.D. Vance and the cat ladies thing that kicks things off when he's selected. Then Kamala Harris steps in for Biden, and immediately the go-to is, well, she's a slut, and she slept her way to the top. And then with abortion rights also being on the ballot, and in 2016, Trump was running on, she's corrupt, these trade deals are bad for you. These are the kinds of things where, like, I can see why that resonated. But with women's health care on the ballot, and with Harris doing what Clinton didn't really do, which was blanketing the swing states, the ground game was better. Not as strong of a message or a contrast. We can get into that. But, like, the fundamentals that Hillary failed on, she did better on that. And then it was a worse result in many ways. And so that's the kind of thing where it's depressing. And I agree with you. What does it say about the public that this appealed to them? And now that Trump's appointing all these accused rapists to his cabinet, what does it say about this political movement and what it means for half this population and more?
I think we can tell what it says, and it's not good. I mean, the fact that abortion rights didn't manage to motivate many of the voters who had come out for Joe Biden in 2020. I am really, devastated by that was not. Now, granted, some of those are in blue states where people felt safe and, didn't feel like, I guess they had to, had to bother. But nonetheless, just even to make a statement and come out and vote for women's rights, again, deeply disappointed and deeply concerned. And I really feel like we're going backwards. I really do. The appointment of these rapists, and just sexual assault perpetrators across the board, even including at least one of the women, Linda McMahon, and her being involved in all this stuff. I mean, it's stunning that they're doubling down on that. But we should have seen it. We saw the Republican convention. They were,
Yep.
It's a man's world, right? I mean, they weren't making any bones about this. So here we are. And as a woman, it's pretty devastating. I can't even imagine for you, Em. I mean, I'm older, so it's like, I've been going through this for a while. But I mean, if I were your age, I'd be pretty,
Right. Well, I mean, I asked Sam, how is Mila reacting to it too? Because I think, I was 14 when Obama first got elected, and that was this was why I cared about politics, was him running on I cared about the Iraq War really early on, right? That was my introduction into this kind of thing. And I remember that feeling and like crying tears of joy, seeing him win and get inaugurated. I remember exactly where I was. And this was the first time I'd voted in a general. Obama 2012, voting for him was a little more disappointing because of the failures of that administration. But I did think we had an opportunity to kill Trumpism this time around. And I thought that white women would care about abortion enough to vote for Harris. Like, I really thought that was and I think I'm projecting my own mind onto them, because at the end of the day, he won white women. It turns out their whiteness mattered more than the rights of other women.
I was not disappointed in the American public, simply because I think I was already there for a long time. I mean, I don't, it's 50% of the population. He only got about under 2 million votes, was more than he got last time. Largely, it was about Harris underperforming, and part of that could be also like a lack of understanding to people that, like, if you don't vote, you're making it possible for this guy who lost, with his numbers in 2024, he would have lost to Joe Biden's numbers in 2020, and largely. And I mean, at least in terms of like the popular vote, I mean, it's a little bit more nuanced in terms of swing states. And I remember thinking, or saying, if I'm from a foreign country and I'm looking at the U.S. in terms of being a stable country, and they go from Obama to Trump, why wouldn't I think that they can go from, they can go back to Obama and then back to Trump? I wasn't talking specifically about Obama, and I probably wasn't talking specifically about Trump, although that's what happened. Like, this is an unstable country. Yeah. And we have the dynamic of these politics in some ways has not changed. It's just like, where has the tipping point been? And in some ways, like, Thomas Piketty makes that argument that the era of the Great Compression in the 50s and 60s and early 70s, where wealth inequality, shrunk, was the anomaly. And that, as we get to wealth inequality growing, that's sort of more like returning to the mean. And in some ways, it could be with our politics as well. I mean, the era where I guess I am more worried about where we go from here, because, it's a good way of segueing into this conversation, because as I think bumbling and inept and unthoughtful as Donald Trump is, the Republican movement has had the opportunity to prepare for this in a way that we've never seen before, right? Like we've never seen, even when Bush wins George W. Bush, who I think was one of the worst presidents we've had, and Reagan the same way.
Great.
They don't have time to recalibrate, and between those two administrations. And this is a very unique dynamic where all of these people who worked in Trump 1 could go into the think tanks, and then come up with their ideas and immediately implement them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've written about Russ Vought and the former budget OMB head in Trump, who then basically went on and more or less marshaled Project 2025. And he's going to be back in. And he's going to be running this stuff. And that's what really scares me. But before we get to that, let's talk about this Gates nomination, because I was very surprised that he dropped out, to be honest. What was your sense of this?
I honestly didn't know. I was kind of I was just waiting to see how this is unfolding. I had an inkling that something was going on that we weren't seeing when the Senate, with a secret ballot, voted for John Thune over Rick Scott. And I thought to myself, because Rick Scott, you know, Trump didn't endorse in that. But all of his minions came out and endorsed Rick Scott. Musk did, you know, RFK Jr., you know, Ramaswamy, they came out and endorsed Rick Scott. So I thought, okay, that's where Mar-a-Lago is right now. That's where the MAGA feeling is. They wanted Rick Scott. And Rick Scott only got 13 votes. And I thought to myself when that happened, I'm going, oh, that's interesting. I'm surprised because the juggernaut that is the Donald Trump, who just won this alleged landslide, I would have thought they would have just gone along with him on that if he's got that much power. But it was a secret ballot. And I'm going, okay, so there's some rumblings underneath here where nobody's going to have to take responsibility for that. On that same day is the day that Trump named Gates. And so I went, oh, okay, let's just see how this plays out. And as it turns out, I just wrote about this morning for Salon. As it turns out, what ended up happening is that Trump threw out that trial balloon about the recess appointments. And this is before the senators voted for Thune. He threw out there, anybody who wants to be the leader has to agree to do recess appointments. We have to get this done immediately, you know, exclamation point. And John Thune agreed to do that. He didn't say that he would do it. He said that has to be on the table. It has to be available or whatever. It was a bit of a hedge, but he did agree to it. So it just occurred to me that maybe there was more going on underneath the surface, because one of the things that you have to know about senators over Congress people is they all look in the mirror in the morning and see a president. They think that right. You know, these people, you know, you're an ego if you're in the Senate, one way or the other. That these are not people who are generally used to being treated like servants of the president. And yet that's exactly how they were being seen. And they were being told, you either do what I say or I'm going to adjourn you. I've got Mike Johnson over here and he's going to help me do it, which I won't go into the process. You've probably talked about it. The process of recess appointments would have required there to be a disagreement and blah, blah, blah. So he's saying, I'm going to let Mike Johnson and I are going to get together and we're just going to ice you people out if you don't do what I tell you to do. So that occurred to me that him naming Gates was a real shot across the bow to these senators because they hate him. Everybody hates that guy. He was the most unpopular person in the entire Capitol. And for him to name him right when he did, the first one out of the gate, saying this is the Gates, saying this is who I'm going to do, it occurred to me that there might be a little tiny bit of pushback from the Republicans. I didn't know if it would happen. I think it did happen. What went on this week was that they sent J.D. Vance with Gates down to the Capitol. He met with the senators, and the senators apparently said there were enough of them who said we're a hard no. We're not voting for this guy. And the House, apparently there was rumblings here. I got this from Philip Bump at the Washington Post. The House said there were enough Republicans in the House that said, you know, in this narrow majority that they have there, we're not going along with this. We're not going to let you adjourn the House and do this gambit of doing recess appointments. all of this was on the QT. Nobody was out there going on Fox and saying, I won't go along with it. They were all pretending like Donald Trump has a right to get his, whatever. But somewhere underneath all of this, there was a slight resistance among the congressional Republicans to Trump just absolutely, bringing the hammer down and saying, I get my way. As it turns out yesterday, apparently, they had this CNN story about Gates that they were going to drop this second bombshell that he had actually been with this 17-year-old more than once and in some kind of group sex situation. And the drama that we heard about was that they told him, and then they said, we're going to drop this story at 12:30, and at 12:24, Gates sent out a statement saying he was withdrawing. What really happened in there, according to Mark Caputo, who's down in Mar-a-Lago, writes for the Bulwark, he said that's not how it went down. What happened was Donald Trump called him and said, you don't have the votes, and there's no way you're going to get the votes. And he left it up to Gates to say what to do. But of course, Gates got the message really clearly that Trump wasn't going to fight for him, and he withdrew. And what that says is, that recess appointment thing, they may use it down the road if there's something that Trump really, but it's not the threat, I don't think, that Trump thought it was going to be. And he went ahead and, he let Gates go. He has Bondi. What's the difference, really? It's not like, he's fine with his revenge, tour that he's going to do. But, and Trump has no loyalty to anybody. He doesn't care. On a personal level, he could care less about Matt Gaetz. But what it did say to me was that it showed that this juggernaut, this incredible, powerful, all-powerful dictator that we had 2 weeks ago, Trump just showed some weakness. And he showed the same kind of weakness that he always shows, which is that he's inept. He is dysfunctional. He's chaotic. He doesn't know what he's doing. And to be honest with you, I think that may be the only real guardrail that we have is Trump's own ineptitude.
I have to say, though, I think that in some respects, Gates is sui generis in this way, in that there was and I hadn't heard that part about the House, and it really does explain everything. That's really fascinating, because the Senate, I think he would have been okay with the Senate saying, we're not going to vote for this guy. And I think Trump had completely outlined the whole plan. We had talked about it, 3 or 4 days ago, maybe at the beginning of this week, which was, the House adjourns. The Senate says they're not going to. The president falls to Article 3, Section 2, or I think it is, and then says, okay, I'll resolve this. You're both on recess. Now, the Senate could come back, theoretically, not within a 10-day window and prevent Trump from appointing, but they would have been in a position where they don't have to do anything, so it's easier for them to let it slide. But Johnson does have this incredibly thin margin. And we should say Gates has now decided he's not coming back to Congress. So and not only is it an incredibly thin margin, it's either going to be, 4 or 5 votes, 6 votes, 7 votes, we'll see. But 3 are absent for the next couple of months. So right now he has, right when it comes time to do that vacancy on January 6th or whenever it is that they take office.
The 20th is the inauguration, right?
The inauguration is the 20th. But
it's the 3rd. It's January 3rd.
January 3rd is when the House would come in. In that one, as narrow as the margin is now, it's going to be 1 or 2 votes. And remember, 2 of those people voted against impeachment. Voted for impeachment. Mm-hmm. And so that's razor thin. And the hatred of Matt Gaetz. That's why Mike Johnson's standing there, is because of Matt Gaetz. And as much as Steve Scalise is going in and there's an internal conflict where he's getting rid of some of the McCarthy people in leadership positions in the House, they still exist. They still have a vote. And the last thing they're going to do is allow for a recess appointment process that appoints Gates. I think they'll do it for everybody else. I don't think they care about, child, rape, or I don't think they care about this story of Pete Hegseth. Maybe, RFK, they're a little bit nervous about some things and they don't want him to actually wait, we thought you were just going to ban vaccines. We didn't realize you wanted to also ban, other industrial products. But I think that's the real key, that Matt Gaetz was not just odious, but specifically this was a clash of vengeance between two different factions. One that is still sort of is the rump, and they are more hidden, but 2 or 3 votes and the whole recess appointment process falls apart because he's going to have to do all of them in that recess. You can't do one recess and then another and then another. He's going to probably put 2 or 3 people through in that recess. I still think that's going to happen.
Well, I mean, you may very well be right. I mean, you make a good case that Gaetz really was sui generis, and that the rest of them will float through. But I do think, I mean, what you're getting the sense is that Pete Hegseth, for one thing, what he is, when people are actually seeing what this guy is, and the rapist part is just part of it. He's completely unqualified for the job. He also has a view of the military that is really disgusting. I mean, Emma, this guy, when we want to talk about misogynist, he is right up there with Trump for being just a sheer, unadulterated misogynist. I think that I read yesterday, and I can't remember where I read it, that senators have been getting calls from, generals and former generals and people like that who are deeply concerned about Hegseth's approach to, quote, reforming the military, that it's going to be disruptive on a level that people are not necessarily anticipating.
That internal, complaint by somebody that served with him about his tattoos that have links to white supremacy. Right. That was somebody that was with him that filed a complaint within the military. I don't know. I mean, I'm a little bit more with you, Heather. I don't know how, because Trump will abandon these folks if he needs to, right?
They can find somebody else he can find other people to do his dirty work. At some point, yes, he wants to defy everybody and he wants to, stage a big show. And I think that's a big part of why he's choosing these people. I mean, they literally come out of television, which is why he's choosing them. But these senators and House members too, they have constituents that Trump. I mean, one of the things we have to really wrap our minds around with Trump's never going to run again. He has no need ever again to care about what voters think of him. He can make it up in his own head. He doesn't care. He never did care about his approval rating. He will do what he wants. He will reward people he chooses to reward. And it has no bearing on whether or not he owes them anything. For case in point, the anti-abortion movement now they are pushing very hard. They wanted to get that guy that wrote the passage in 2025. I can't think of his name. It's Severino or something like that. And they wanted him in, and the Trump people said, no, we can't have him. He's too extreme. And the anti-abortion folks are all upset. They're not going to, I mean, I'm not saying they're not going to get anything out of him on this, but I don't think that they're going to get the big push that they were hoping for. And I think that's what you're going to see. Trump doesn't care about anything but Trump. We know that. And he has 2 things that he cares about specifically doing in this term. One is money. Anything that has to do with him personally making money, obviously, and that can be a wide range of stuff, right? I mean, anything from Bitcoin to, whatever, tariffs or whatever he thinks is going to make him money. He doesn't care about the country. He doesn't care about the economy. He cares about money. That's not necessarily the same thing when it comes to him. And the other thing he cares about is revenge. He wants to take vengeance on anybody who he feels wronged him, and that's a big group of people. And specifically, it's the Department of Justice, the Department of Defense, and the intelligence community. And I think now we're looking with him with the RFK thing. He wants to set RFK loose on all those pointy-headed scientists who made him look stupid during COVID. So he's he wants to set that up, and there are plenty of people he can put into those jobs. It doesn't have to be these particular people, but he wants to do it. He was feeling drunk with power, I think, and kind of buying his own hype and putting these people in. Now, but these people in the Congress, in the House and in the Senate, they have to run again. They're not like Trump. They actually do have to run for office, many of them in 2 years. And so they're getting some countervailing pressure, I think, from others, like the military, for instance. When it comes to Republican politics, you cannot underestimate the power of the military and the military-industrial complex on those people. And I think there's going to, and so I'm with Emma a little bit. I don't know, Sam. It's entirely possible that he gets all these people through on a recess. That is totally within the realm of possibility. But maybe there's some air there. I don't know.
Maybe, but let's play this clip. This is from Thursday, just probably moments before Gates drops out. And this is ABC's Selena Wang. And this is, and again, like, I mean, I don't, well, we'll get back to this, but I'm sort of like agnostic on the whole, if he gets his picks or not. Like, I think it's helpful insofar as like, it's good to see people not acquiesce on some level, but I think it's Pyrrhic. I don't think it's real.
Oh,
and,
it is. It's totally Pyrrhic.
you remember when, it was supposed to be Harriet Myers and the conservatives shot her down. Ostensibly because she was, and we got Alito, and I'm a little worried that that's the dynamic at play. But here is ABC News reports yesterday, which shows both, like, it's not, you mentioned these Congress people and senators have a constituency, and Trump doesn't care about that, but there is still a Republican apparatus. Here we go.
Well, Trump has been working the phones. He's been upping the pressure on Senate Republicans, even calling some of them directly. This is as J.D. Vance is also making the pitch. He was up on Capitol Hill with Matt Gaetz yesterday, meeting with some of those Senate Republicans. And we're told by a Trump official that those meetings were productive. But we're also told that behind the scenes, the Trump team has been playing hardball, and they've been giving an ominous warning to any Senate Republicans who might oppose his nominees. One Trump advisor telling our John Carl that the message is, quote, if you are on the wrong side of the vote, you're buying yourself a primary. That is all. And there's a guy named Elon Musk who is going to finance it. The Trump advisor added the president gets to decide his cabinet, no one else. This comes out.
So, I mean, obviously it shows we're in an era now where, we've been talking about oligarchy for 10, 15 years. It has fully arrived, right? Like, I mean, Elon Musk basically saying, I have unlimited funds. I will bankroll every primary against you guys. And notice when that report came down, it was nominees, not necessarily Gaetz. And so there is this threat. On one hand, Trump is talking to Susie Wiles, who is his chief of staff, who's saying, hey, it's not worth expending your capital on Matt Gaetz, which is a pretty easy, like, there's problems not just in the Senate, but there's problems in the House. And he could take down your entire your entire recess appointment strategy. If there's 2 or 3 people that need to go through that process, Gaetz could pull that all down because there's such unique animosity towards Gaetz himself. And so, she's saying that to him, be practical, it's going to cost you. But then he's on the phone with Steve Bannon, or he's on the phone with, whomever it is, saying, you're showing weakness and you can't do this twice. You can get away with it once because Gaetz was unique, but you're showing weakness. You got to go forward. And he's got Elon Musk and he's got these others. I mean, he has
Elon for now. That's my one caveat.
That's true. But Elon also has got to be thinking, wait a second, how much do I need Trump at one point?
Right.
I mean, I've got all the money
Does
in the
that
world.
last until bankrolling primary challenges against specific members of Congress or senators who oppose Trump's nominees? I have deep skepticism, and I would imagine Republicans in Congress do, that this relationship continues in the way that it has for right now. But that's my one
probably
caveat.
true. But this guy's going around thinking like, I made it possible for Donald Trump to win. And whether he's right or not, someone with that type of hubris and ego doesn't need much convincing. He's got all the money in the world. And I worry about Bondi, frankly. I mean,
me too.
She is corrupt, was involved in fraud, stopped investigating Trump University when she got money from him. Yep. This is maybe late payback. She was famous for basically undermining two of the best prosecutors regarding the financial fraud in the run up to 2008. Yep. David Dane has written extensively on this. I mean, she's been attorney general in Florida. She knows what she's doing, in other words, whereas Gates, I don't think, had any clue. But, it's hard to know who could do more damage there. As far as the military, I worry about, Pete Hegseth coming in, firing all the generals, I guess, and then, getting generals who are going to turn the military on, in U.S. operations. But on the other hand, I'm also I don't mind it if he, completely undermines the support structure for the military we have. I don't know that he would do that. But whoever gets in there, if it's not him, is going to be also horrible and maybe not as obviously assailable like a cartoon character.
Well, I mean, this is the thing. And, you kind of hit upon this earlier. You're talking about Russ Vought, right? Who they're going to bring in for OMB. He was in OMB in the last administration. Towards the end, after Mick Mulvaney left, he became the acting OMB. And he's also the author of the executive branch portion of Project 2025. And he also wrote, and apparently it's a secret document that people haven't seen, about the plan for the first 180 days, which was also part of Project 2025. He is the type of person who, you're talking about Elon Musk, and, he and Vivek Ramaswamy have this commission. It's called Doge. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, but I'm not saying that because that's just a way for Elon Musk to advertise his coin.
It's the dumbest crap ever. We should not indulge it. Agreed.
Yeah, it's completely ridiculous. But Russ Vought said this week, as that people are starting to talk to him, and I've been writing about him for a long time because he fascinates me, because he's a very different kind of MAGA guy. He's not a MAGA guy. He is pre-MAGA, and he is basically, a full-fledged fascist, I mean, that's what he is. And he is the modern incarnation of the original conservative movement. And these ideas that are floating up through Project 2025 didn't start with Donald Trump. They started a long time ago with people in the far right.
This is a Republican Party.
This is their thing. It's
the Republican Party.
I don't
even
them. Yeah.
I'm going to ban MAGA from here. There should have never been any splitting Donald Trump off from the Republican Party.
This is who they are. And this guy is the embodiment of that, because he's been part of this. He was a bureaucrat for years. He worked with the Republican study group in the House. He was part of the Freedom Caucus. He is a numbers cruncher and a guy who has a very, very strong sense. He's also a Christian nationalist. I mean, big time, with big, big plans and plots to enact his Christian nationalist agenda. He is also extremely competent. He knows how to do things. He's not Musk and Ramaswamy having their podcast about Doge or whatever it is they're doing. This guy says, he goes, well, I'm going to be working closely with Ramaswamy and Musk. That's not true. Vought is going to be actually running that. He's going to be the guy who is running the Schedule F, the one where they're going to fire all the federal employees. That part of the agenda, this thing that's happening, you've got Hegseth and you've got Gates and you've got Tulsi Gabbard and RFK Jr. They're going to be on TV and we're all going to be talking about them and we're going to be up in arms by everything that they're doing because it's just so crazy. They're putting rapists in charge of everything. Oh my God. And it is horrible. And we're legitimately appalled by that. But underneath it, you've got the Rust votes, and there are a whole bunch of them. And they are people who actually have a plan. Donald Trump, like I said, doesn't give a damn about any of that. That's his, sure, he wants to punish people in the government and fire anybody who doesn't love him. But that's about it. He doesn't have to think any further than that. He's not trying to really disassemble the administrative state or whatever, that Bannon, trope is. He just wants vengeance. He wants revenge on the people that didn't treat him well and want to get them out of there. These guys are serious. They are serious, have serious plans. Now, whether they can pull it all off, I'm not saying that they're geniuses or that they're, omnipotent in any way, but they are serious about what they're doing. They're not, this isn't all for show. It's not something where they want to get on TV. I mean, Russ Vogt doesn't do TV. No. He's not a TV guy. He's doing this thing. So people need to keep an eye on that. That's why, okay, it's great to get rid of Gates, and if we get rid of RFK Jr.'s completely out to lunch, and Gabbard and Hegseth, you can get rid of all of them, and it would make me happy because it would make Trump unhappy to lose all those people, and that is something that I really enjoy. However, he will replace them with people who are probably more competent than those people, and even if they aren't, there's this whole layer of people underneath that are dead set. And that's, Sam, that's the Republican Party, as you say. These are the same people. This is Heritage Foundation, for God's sake. They've been doing this stuff since the 80s.
Yes.
Nothing new under the sun there.
I vacillate. I mean, I want Trump to have a loss. I think that's helpful in terms of at least in the short term, curbing what he can do. But on the other hand, they're going to get people in who are going to draw less attention to what they're doing. They already have the middle management, or upper management, not the show horses, all lined up. They have their resumes. They know where they're going. This isn't going to be a situation where Jared Kushner walks in and goes, "Who of these people stay and who goes?" And what, they all go? They are ready to go out the gate, and they don't have to be geniuses. They just have to be middling, because what they're doing has the benchmarks are just, it's not achievement that they're looking for. In many respects, it's just
destruction.
It's destruction. And when you're doing demo, you can do it in a way that maybe somebody gets hurt or doesn't get hurt, or dust goes all over the place. But the fact of the matter is, one way or another, this stuff is coming down.
Yeah.
And so you don't need to be, you don't need to have a skilled trade to do demo in these instances, particularly if you don't care about the side effects. The side effects are just, completely irrelevant. Maybe you monetize them. I'm going to sell dust filters, just to stretch this out. And so I vacillate. I don't want to invest too much in, these people not getting confirmed, because it's much easier to point to, a Pete Hegseth and say, this is what's going on in the military, as opposed to, John Doe, who's going to do the exact same thing, but nobody knows who he is.
Right.
It's much easier to go Dr. Oz is cutting Medicaid because there's a whole, already ready media packet for that John Fetterman, back when he cared about this stuff, had prepared, essentially. RFK, not hard to paint as a complete, frankly, both lunatic and grifter. Maybe Emma will play some footage from Ring of Fire, which I had forgotten about, that's out there now, with Matt Taibbi, of all people, talking about how Trump builds his little fascist army. And that, in the type of media environment we're in, sometimes it's I want that shiny object at the top of these things, because that becomes sort of the way that these stories are told, as opposed to
that's
like
a good point. That's
Rex
a good point,
Tillerson
actually.
or whomever, who's going to be horrible about this. So I'm a little bit torn in that respect, but because I'm genuinely worried. I think they know that they've got 2 years to do this, and they're not going to stop. They've got backup plans and all of this. I'm worried about that.
Yeah, well, that's the 180 days, plan by Russ Vought. That's they wanted to hit the ground running as fast as possible. And I don't think Trump is really bought in. I mean, he's bought in on it to the extent that, let's get going and do all these things. Like,
Whatever.
I'll be a
Where's my
dictator
money?
for one day. Yeah, exactly.
Where's my money?
Where's
Can
my
I
money?
still sell guitars?
And apparently he can. He is totally planning to do anything. I mean, just think about the fact that the corruption side of this is completely off the table. Nobody's even talking about it. It's totally fine that they are all going to be grifting through, that he will be selling guitars out of the Oval Office, and that will be fine. No one will say
sell watches
a word
in the Oval Office, it's an official act.
It is. And I have immunity. Okay. I have immunity, as everyone knows.
Remember Drain the Swamp?
Yeah. Well, that's what they, that used to be, it never applied to him, obviously.
That's what's emblazoned on the watch, right underneath. Right. It says Drain the Swamp.
It does. And on the guitar, which, by the way, he's signing the guitar like he's, Eddie Van Halen or something. It's hilarious.
I'd like to see him try to play the guitar. That would be to do anything that would require practice or skill that isn't golf, which he cheats at, might be a difficult task for him.
I mean, I totally agree with you that this is, there's a whole, what they're capable of achieving in 2 years worth by taking this wrecking ball, that these people have been, look, this isn't new to us, Sam. I mean, we were talking about this stuff back in the Bush administration. A lot of this destruction, the unitary executive, do you remember? I mean, that was the big thing. And they wanted to always get rid of all the federal employees and break the federal employees unions and, get rid of the Department of Education. People are acting like that's a new thing. They've been saying that since the Department of Education was created, that they wanted to get rid of it. So a lot of these are just long-held plans on the part of what used to be the conservative movement, and coming out of the think tanks like the Heritage Foundation, and they're actually going to try and implement these things. And the only thing I can think of, I mean, I worry about the Rust votes, and I worry about the fact that we're all, I don't know. There's just so much, and it's this flooding the zone concept is really powerful, and it really does work for them. On the other hand, recall, and you guys will remember this, when they went into Baghdad, right? The Bush administration went into Baghdad, and they were going to create a country from this ground up, right? They were going to create a democracy from the ground up, and this was their big plan. They went in there and they created the green zone in there, where they sent in, what was that guy's name? I can't remember. I mean, he had desert boots. Bremer. They sent him in. He was the viceroy, and they were gonna, they were gonna start they were gonna do a stock market.
But that's okay.
It was a prefect. Okay. They were going to do create a stock market from the ground up. They were going to rebuild the whole thing, and they were going to create this perfect democratic oasis in the middle of Iraq. Well, as it turns out, I don't know if you remember a movie called Adventures in the Imperial Life in the Emerald City was the name of it. It was a really excellent book. I thought they should make a musical out of it. It was about these people they sent in there, and they all came from the Heritage Foundation. As we found out later, it was a bunch of young people, mostly under the age of 25, that they sent in. They sent in some 22-year-old to go and create the stock market from the ground up. And they got their resumes from the Heritage Foundation, and they just sent them in there. And of course, we all know what happened, which was the entire thing collapsed. The entire country collapsed, and we ended up in there for, a decade, and the whole thing was a miserable failure. The one thing I wonder is, this is a Heritage Foundation baby. I'm wondering if we're going to have a little bit of that imperial life in the Emerald City. Let's face it, these guys, like you said, they don't have to be geniuses,
But that's the problem, is that, like, yes, they were deluded, they overshot, they thought they could create some type of like free market, a Milton Friedman paradise.
Yeah.
They failed miserably, but the costs were borne by a million people who died there.
Yeah.
The costs were borne in the trillions for this country. Thousands of military personnel.
And they did do the destruction part.
And the destruction part. And that's the thing, is that, like, they don't have to, they're not here to build. They're here to tear down. And like I say, gravity is their friend in this case.
This isn't PNAC trying to build democracies, right? These people don't care about democracies. This is Heritage Foundation and the rest of this whole, crew wanting to just wreck the government and leave it a smoldering ruin.
We are out of time, and probably helpfully, because the next question is, what do we do about it? And we're going to give you a couple more weeks to figure it out.
Oh, thank you.
And so
homework assignment.
I'll have it done. Don't worry. I'll get right on that.
You got a couple more weeks to work that out, because I mean, really, I feel like in the 20 years that I've been doing this, I have less of a sense of where the light is at the end of the tunnel. Like there isn't, I don't think this ends in 4 years. And I don't know, I think we'll have elections in 4 years. I'm not necessarily one of those people who don't think we will, but I think that the context of those elections may be seriously disadvantaged for anybody who wants to, even if there's like real pain and hardship that comes from this. And I mean,
Attorney General Pam Bondi and what that administration could do to voting on a federal level is very concerning.
There was a record number of requests to start unions last year, in like 50 years. Like it was like, 3,500. And, if that spirit can be maintained without the sort of the ability to get those requests made, then, I think we have hope, right? I mean, like there's going to be organizing, and, I think there's going to be a much better chance for Sean Fain's 2028 general strike in May than, maybe otherwise, or maybe less. We'll see. But
exactly.
I worry about the next 2 years, for that matter. But like I say, Digby, you've got at least a couple of weeks more before we will require a solution. So
all right. I'm on it.
People can check out and see if Heather writes about it at salon.com or at Hullabaloo before she gets back. Thanks so much for your time, Digby. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Heather.
DSA Aaron in Atlanta says, if RFK is involved, we'll all die from polio before 4 years are up. Well, there you go. Should we just do those RFK things before I go? Because I'm not going to be here. I got 10 minutes.
All right.
So there have been 2 clips that have emerged, found by, I guess, the guy at CNN, K-File, and it's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. doing an interview with a writer back in 2016. And this is in the run up to the election. Do we know the exact date of this?
Let me see if I can find the exact date.
I don't know if the exact date is there, but this first one is, I think, in the run up to the election. And RFK is talking to this writer who has written a scathing view of like Trump supporters and Trump people in his direct sort of like universe. And RFK is so impressed by it, he's reading it back. And it is really fascinating. And the name of the show that he did this on was called Ring of Fire.
Huh.
And at the time, RFK Jr. was one of 3 hosts, I think, in 2016. The other was Mike Papantonio, who is the lawyer that I sometimes interview when I go down to Las Vegas for the tort conference. And then the third co-host was someone who was of middling talent, wasn't necessarily the greatest broadcaster, and his name was Sam Seder. I was not involved in this interview. A lot of times what would happen is Kennedy would do an interview, and then I would do an interview asynchronistic. We weren't there together. Here is Robert F. Kennedy quoting Matt Taibbi back to him back in 2016.
You know, one of the things that you write so beautifully, and your stuff is so fun to read, but you write about Trump. Quote, the way that you build a truly vicious nationalist movement is to wed a relatively small core of belligerent idiots to a much larger group of opportunists and spineless fellow travelers whose primary function is to turn a blind eye to things. We may not have that many outright Nazis in America, but we have plenty of cowards and bootlickers, and once those fleshy dominoes start tumbling into the Trump camp, the game is up. When you talk about fleshy dominoes, Chris Christie comes to mind.
Yeah, exactly.
That was a pretty good joke there by RFK, who sounded a lot more coherent than he does in 2024.
To be fair, he was reading back Taibbi's own words to him. But
yeah. Well, good joke by Taibbi then. Also more coherent.
Does anybody think that Donald Trump has not surrounded himself by belligerent idiots this time around? And then can anybody figure out who is this year's Chris Christie? An opportunist, spineless fellow traveler turning a blind eye to all of it. We know that RFK went to Harris and offered his services. She wasn't interested. And so despite the fact that RFK had this to say at that time about Donald Trump and his universe, in this notion of like a hateful nationalist movement, he turned a blind eye and became an opportunist, according to the way Matt Taibbi wrote it at the time. And here is RFK, I think a little bit later, in 2016, talking about Donald Trump and the statements he made at that time. And it's not like he said anything different, right? I mean, now he's talking about actually deporting 11 million people on day one of his administration. Here is Kennedy, and at the end, you can hear his middling talented co-host.
The easiest thing for a politician to do is to appeal to fear. And you can see that every statement that Donald Trump makes is fear-based. Every statement he makes. You know, we have to be fear of the Muslims. We have to be fear of the black people, and particularly the big black guy, Obama, who's destroying this country, who's making everybody miserable, and only one person has the genius and the capacity to solve these things. I'm not going to tell you how I'm going to do it. Just trust in me, vote for me, and everything will be great again. And of course, that is a really, that whole thing is like a carnival barker. But carnival barkers make a lot of money. And, as the most famous carnival barker of all time said, P.T. Barnum, you can fool, let me paraphrase, a lot of the people a lot of the time. And I think that's, and the way, and there's a strict, easy formula for doing that, and that is to blend fear with these hyperbolic promises about what you're going to deliver.
Well, it's a terrifying. Yes, that was all the clip that was pulled. But I just also want to emphasize this notion of easy formula, fear and promises without explaining how you're going to do it. So the easy formula would be these vaccines are creating a disease. These chemicals in our food are creating disease and causing early death. Even if there's maybe some element of truth buried in there. And how am I going to fix it? I know exactly how to fix it. Really?
I'm the guy.
No legislation. I'm the guy. I'm going to come in and I'm going to appoint the people, and I know the people that are going to be there, and that's what it is. And that is let me check my notes, easy formula.
He even combined this in that unearthed video from that fundraiser he was doing back when he was running for president, maybe a year ago at this point, where he said that COVID was a bioweapon that was designed to hurt all races except the Chinese and Ashkenazi Jews. So that's
weird combo.
It's a little
there.
Weird. It's like it's alluding to past anti-Semitic connections with communists, I think, is kind of like the overarching framework of that conspiracy theory. But like how he sounded there in 2016, talking to you or on Ring of Fire and talking about what Taibbi was saying, is a different it's a different person. I mean, like I'm not trying to speculate, but he's lost his mind, and like it's the best case scenario in his situation is that he's like really lost it, and he doesn't know exactly fully what he's saying. But Trump is trying to appoint an absolutely crazy person to head this major government agency.
Yeah, I mean, I had forgotten. It was rare that there would be conversations directly between Kennedy and I, but it happened, and I was shocked when I was listening to this. I had no expectation. I didn't even realize we were still doing it together in 2016. I stopped doing it in 2020, and maybe it was around 2016 when he left the show, and I started doing it solo. And but I suspect there's a lot more that people are going to start digging through those archives. I think you have to become a member. I'm no longer affiliated with the show, but I encourage everybody to become a member of that show to dig through those things. But I think the press is going to beat you there. I think there's going to be more that comes out because Kennedy, and there were times where we had conversations about, and maybe this will come out too, about vaccinations. And we did it. I think it may have been on this show, actually, when I was in that tort conference one year, and maybe we should try and dig that up. But I had questioned him early in the early aughts. There was a question, and I thought it was a legitimate question about thimerosal. And by the time, I was involved in this publicly, they had taken thimerosal out of vaccines, I think around 2003. And everybody was waiting 2 or 3 years or 4 years to see if this would impact the autism rates. And it didn't. And I think I asked him, and I haven't listened to this, or I don't know if I ever listened back, but I think I definitely asked him about this, and I think he said they didn't really take it out, or something to that effect. I mean, it was a really unconvincing thing for him to argue, but he was not pushing this stuff really significantly during the Obama years. And I don't know if that was because he thought that maybe there was an opportunity for him politically, and that would be problematic. And then once that passed, he decided to heck with it. I don't know. But I do know his politics have also changed.
Sometimes someone with a lot of trauma, and he has had a lot, and not to say that he hasn't done some really bad things in his past too, which he's admitted to, right? Like, I guess we're coming out sympathetic towards him to a degree, but it's just like, there was seemingly a break that happened. I mean, I remember he was at the Dakota Access Pipeline protest when I was covering that back in 2016. And, there were very few Democrats showing up there. That was,
But his record on environmental work is great, but he doesn't seem to be interested in that anymore. In fact, he called climate change an excuse for authoritarianism, and so.
I think it's the way that a lot of other people get sucked down these conspiracy rabbit holes, right? Something breaks, so you go down some sort of thread, perhaps it touches on some past trauma, and maybe he really does have that brain worm, who knows? But it sounds like an entirely different person. I was not prepared to be as struck by that contrast.
Also,
yeah.
It's not, I don't think it's a naked decision for money, but like when you get positive feedback for these type of things, it's very, very difficult to.
It's easy to justify.
It's easy
why
to
people
justify
leave
yourself.
the left. It's why people leave the left, and then they'll, I'm a new kind of thinker. I'm not heterodox. I'm just open to any and all ideas. It's the same story. It's because they start maybe to get a little resentful about I'm not making as much money as this person, or I have this opinion that doesn't align with Democrats or the left that I'm now going to look more into because I'm bitter that I'm not making all this money. And then, I can get money, a lot more money, based on this opinion that I already hold. And maybe this opens up a whole different set of politics for me and a whole different bank account.
And
maybe.
I don't think even people are that conscious of it.
But that's what I'm saying, how it
goes. That's the mental process, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, folks. With that said, you can become a member of the Majority Report at jointhemajorityreport.com. It's your support that makes this show possible. Jointhemajorityreport.com. Also, don't forget Just Coffee, justcoffee.coop, fair trade coffee, hot chocolate. Use the coupon code majority, get 10% off. Emma, what's happening on ESPN?
Oh, yesterday, Bradley and I gave our picks against the spread. I also talked a little bit about the Daniel Jones benching, and now he was just cut, which seems gratuitous. Giants completely collapsing, youtube.com/ESPN show.
And Left Reckoning this week, I can't remember.
Yeah, Matt and David were joined by friend of the show, Ryan Grimm, to discuss what's next for progressive elected officials and how they relate to the movement at large. You can check that out at youtube.com/leftreckoning, and you can access the post game at patreon.com/leftreckoning.
Tommy from Ukubia on the IM reminds me of Mr. Death. That is the Errol Morris movie. And if you want to know how those people move from one ideology into another, Mr. Death really does show, with a type of person. It's also, going to be more relevant too as we go forward. Turning a blind eye, getting positive feedback, it can change you. It certainly can. All right, we're going to head into the fun half. I'm going to take off. I appreciate your indulgence. You are in good hands, of course. Emma will land this thing. And folks, just self-care. Take it easy. Get ready. It's going to be a long fight, but we're going to, again, we're going to try and exploit every crack we can find, because you never know what what benefit we'll get out of it. And also, continue your organizing efforts. It's going to be, we don't know when we're going to need to reap what you're sowing, but we will eventually. All right. We'll see you in the fun half. 3 months from now, 6 months from now, 9 months from now. And I don't think it's going to be the same as it looks like in 6 months from now. And I don't know if it's necessarily going to be better 6 months from now than it is 3 months from now. But I think around 18 months out, we're going to look back and go like, wow. What is that going on? It's nuts. Wait a second. Hold on for a second.
The Majority Report.
Emma, welcome to the program.
Hey.
Matt.
What is up, everyone?
Nomi Key.
You did it.
point
Go
there.
Brandon.
Let's go, Brandon.
Bradley, you want to say hello?
Sorry to disappoint everyone. I'm just a random guy.
It's all the boys today.
Fundamentally false.
No, I'm sorry. Women's.
Stop talking
Oh,
for a
wow.
second and let me finish.
Where is this coming from, dude?
But dude, you want to smoke this 7A?
Yes.
Hi, me? This me?
Yes.
Is this me?
Is it me?
It is you.
Is this me? Hello, is this me?
I think it is you. Who is you? No sound. Every single freaking day. What's on your mind?
Sports.
We can discuss free markets and we can discuss capitalism.
I'm gonna go Salon.
Libertarians. They're so stupid, though. Common sense says, of course.
Gobbledygook.
We fucking nailed him.
So what's 79 plus 21?
Challenge Mac.
I'm positively quivering.
I believe 96, I want to say.
857-210-501. 1/2. 3/8.
9/11, for instance.
$3,400, $1,900.
6, 5, 4, $3 trillion sold. It's a zero-sum game.
Actually, you're making me think less of it.
But let me say this. Poop.
You can call it satire. Sam goes, it's satire.
On top of it all,
Yeah.
my favorite part about you is just like every day, all day, like
Yeah.
everything you do.
Without a doubt. Hey, buddy, we see you. All right, folks.
It's just the weak being weeded out, obviously.
Yeah, sun's out, guns out. I don't know.
But you should know.
People just don't like to entertain ideas anymore.
I have a question. Who cares?
Our chat is enabled, folks.
I love it.
I do love that.
Look, gotta jump. Gotta be quick. I gotta jump.
I'm losing it, bro.
2 o'clock. We're already late, and the guy's being a dick. So screw him. Sent to a gulag?
Outrageous.
Like, what is wrong with you?
Love you, bye.
Love you. Bye-bye.
We are back. It is the fun half. Just myself and Bradley today. Can you put yourself up in that little bubble?
Oh yeah, hold on, let me get it.
You're so rarely in the bubble.
Yeah, I can be in the. Wait,
The
where?
bubble in the Great 30 Rock
Where is
episode.
it? Oh, here I am. This is me in the
There
bubble.
he is. He and Bradley.
Whoa!
All right, calm down.
Okay, I'm leaving now. I'm leaving.
The bubble again. I'm sorry I reference the same 2 shows all the time, but look, I have special interests. What does that say about my brain? Who knows? But The Bubble is a great episode of 30 Rock with John Hamm, where Tina Fey